Memo obi bi akwaba eba Melodies TV so. Okudzeto ablakwa ede another expose aba. Na etiefo eseweni enya asem ketwa. Enra no Okudzeto ablakwa ka kire Ghana for se wasanso enya expose bi sika eye involved no. $48 million, which amounts to 602 million Ghana cedis. Na Ghana for ehun ebedri womo ene yesi inti Ghana for yembre just say every time they expose chrono sema ekoso every time they expose inti Ghana sebe yembre ana ene Okudzeto ede eye expose na no power ya wode ba betumu yenkonko kenkan bebi a wo se metrɛtrɛ nsɛm ema mote ase no mo amunim meye now we say President Akufo Addo's elephantine wrongful and unconscionable $48 million, which amounts to 602 million Ghana cedis operational expenses for the 13th African Games. One, even before the dust settles on the scandalous $8.5 million AFCON budget brouhaha, unimpeachable, unassailable, and incontrovertible intercepted documents in my possession reveal for the first time that President Akufo Addo and his appointees at the Ministry of Youth and Sports and Local Organizing Committee, LOC, have shockingly agreed to spend an elephantine, wrongful, and unconscionable $48 million on a so-called operational expenses for the 13th African Games to be hosted in Ghana between the period March 5th to March 23rd, 2024, refer to the intercepted documents attached. Now saying na Ghana for Black Stars Echo Cote d'Ivoire Echo Kobo African Cup no Black Stars at the $8.5 million in the coye and the Ghana for bo on my penny and the Black Stars say the Indiana African Cup no sebi say $5 million na da so said ye na on my nkwa na yen the 8.5 na edeko sika ye shiegu. It is asem the cry yen kan wie ye na ye say next month Ghana ye hosti all African Games, the 13th African Games ewo Ghana ha next month and ye hosti sa de no from March 5th to March 23rd. En Okudzeto tre say nensa kankrata tre say $8.5 million a Ghana for years say a dozen cry de akọ Abidjan and Cote d'Ivoire a dozen no. President Akufo Addo na buying air budgeted $48 million as operational expenses for all African Games a year boy. Not just say $8.5 million a year soon crown is a year spend $48 million. It's basically that's what Okudzeto is saying. I say it must be noted that this staggering $48 million is an entirely different amount from the mega $195 million already spent on infrastructure for the games. It's Okudzeto say already no almost spending $195 million infrastructure. You see all African Games already in Ghana. You're spending $195 million on infrastructure. So it is our $48 million are airbay. A different from 195 million. Or say at the prevailing exchange rate, $48 million is equivalent to a colossal 602 million Ghana cedis. Into a tremor, 48 million you're converting in there, a 602 million Ghana cedis. Or say a careful reading of the intercepted February 13th, 2024 letter signed by the LOC Executive Chairman, Dr. Kweku Ofosu Asare, confirms that this ginormous $48 million will be spent in less than a 3-week period, 18 days. Also, this translates into a 6-day weekly expenditure on operational expenses of a mind-boggling 200.6 million Ghana cedis and an even more incredible daily operational expenses of 33.3 million Ghana cedis. To tremwa sa sikeya ye king 3 weeks and ye ko spend $48 million ye spend in 3 weeks. Na ye deba ni ye chichem near the chichimu and after 6 days biano every week biano you best spend 200 million Ghana cedis as operational expense. Every day you spend 33.4 million on my Ghana yeni. All African games you see every day you spend 33 million Ghana cedis as operational expense. Operational expense na non so ne dey. Also, it is most instructive to note that apart from the blatant profligacy and reckless wastefulness by the leader of a bankrupt, debt-distressed IMF bailout country, President Akufo Addo's conduct is absolutely wrong because Parliament approved 100 million Ghana cedis under goods and services and then 50 million for capital expenditure for the 2024 expenditure by the Ministry of Youth and Sports on the 13th African Games. See page 230 of 2024 budget as attached. It is therefore totally lawless and utterly repugnant for President Akufo Addo to unilaterally vary by more than 6 times what Parliament has approved for non-CapEx, that is from 100 million to 602. No Okudzeto asema what can they say? At the end of the day, Obi Beka say, oh, na say any year spend it and a all African Games no. Or say na Kenya bone. Na obe spending nyama bisa na wasa wode ba Parliament na betre say all African Games a ye no. Sika ye spend no any. Omo ba Parliament na asema wo mo aba be kan say ye be spend 100 million Ghana cedis. And no de ba Parliament. Which is less than $10 million. Almost 100 million Ghana cedis ne be spend it. Na say ye be spend 100 million Ghana cedis a eba ne saying and afi documents say sikana jump from 100 million to 600 because Parliament approved 100 million. Ti dientia and akọ times 6. Dientia na moye sa. Inti etiamra. Inti uhwe Okudzeto ni issue na mainly no. That is where it lies. Also, the intercepted documents confirm that despite Parliament's approval of only 100 million Ghana cedis, President Akufo Addo instructed the LOC to send out official request letters as recent as February 13, 2024, in which they defy Parliament and communicate their outlandish, unlawful, and unjustifiable $48 million. Into say Akufo Addo nimpa say 100 million Ghana cedis spend a year approve. Now so wama order. Order no air say omonkonko spend 600. Etiamra. I say it is regrettable to note that instead of President Akufo Addo and his appointees at the Sports Ministry and LOC acknowledging Ghana's current economic crisis and slashing their ostentatious 48 million Ghana cedis operational expenses budget, he rather proceeded to personally chair fundraising meetings on the 6th and 7th of November 2023 at the Jubilee House with an objective to raising 48 million Ghana cedis. See evidence of the president's meeting attached. A number of top executives who have received the Akufo Addo inspired $48 million shocking request letter are outraged about the quantum for a broke country and the deliberate refusal to transparently present a breakdown. To Ohemwa, Encrophobia, or Moya Penifo, Ewa Banimukra, no my shocked, say, eh, Papa, Sika Wababe boy, dear. Because Sika ye kasi ye pay. Sikei Esa. Essence as Sikea Papa boy. So more cry your mama said that the Sikei dear, I say, Obi Peso unity free. As a careful analysis of the entities President Akufo Addo met during his now infamous fundraising engagement show that the president is mainly interested in public funds, either by targeting SOEs such as GMPC, Ghana Gas, Bust, and Well, or by targeting private companies such as Magdan, Zoomlion, Modec, and Cosmos, all noted for executing huge government contracts. Akufo Addo, NM say, opeso raise funds. Na funds no opeso raising the crown on GMPC so nini na ye Ghana for sika. Esanso na Magdan, Zoomlion, omwa aban na more contracts. Any ye pesi ye ne yesanso fe chi sika no in the name of fundraising. Additionally, the president's conduct raises fundamental ethical questions. How did president select these companies? What promises did President Akufo Addo made to those CEOs? How can other companies compete fairly with these presidential companies in any competitive bidding process? particularly considering the current single source procurement epidemic. After these companies present their $5 million sponsorship cash to President's misplaced fundraising campaign, how can taxpayers be assured of value for money in the projects these entities would execute? 11. Should GNPC, Ghana Gas, Bust and Gwell, which belong to the Ghanaian people, be compelled by the president to sponsor his unconscionable 602 million Ghana cedis 13th African Games operational expense, when these corporations could be allowed to make more meaningful investments in expanding their operations so they could create substantial jobs for the youth and thereby help address Ghana's acute youth unemployment? Why are these SEOs beginning to make payments due to President Akufo Addo's unlawful pressure when they haven't sought parliamentary approval? The boss management should prepare to answer questions in Parliament. For the initial $500,000, that is 6.2 million Ghana cedis, it transferred to Akufo Addo's LOC a few days ago. Into here, I see Akufo Addo the pressure. Two companies, these companies need no. Omo companies here or from presidential companies say abai na mo a year contract. Aside that, no, state-owned enterprises to say GNPC, Bust, woman in Akufo Addo pressure to almost say omo fe sikambra. Emma Bust krano akwa kotia $500,000 a year dollars. Ebimo $5 million and all that. Into asema what can I say? Sa company ya ye de pressure to omo so omo fe sikambra na ka se sika ne krano. So na nkom betum dey expand your company na nkom afa Ghana for bebre dwumem. Your promises be no dey ama company we hu ne say Akufo Addo na ebisa nti no ye de yemfa sika ne ma no. Ebia na obemo omo contract we chi no mo de ate omo ka. I said the minority caucus in Parliament led by the dynamic Dr. Kisel Atoban-Forsen will this week seek Speaker Babin's blessings to summon the sports minister Mustafa Yusuf on their unlawful, unostentatious and unconscionable $48 million operational expenses budget, which undermines the authority of Parliament. That will be a first step in a series of constitutional actions, not ruling out possible impeachment of President Akufo Addo, as we are determined to make sure the president doesn't get away with another blatant crate loot and share scheme. As the President Akufo Addo's unpatriotic and nation-wrecking act of approving and leading the collection of this gigantic $48 million for so-called operational expenses for the 13th African Games deserves to be exposed and scuttled. Also, a government denying pensioners their life savings, a government unable to house VRA spillage victims who are still living in refugee-like tents after 5 months, a government unable to equip our hospitals, including the renal unit of Konfanoti Teaching Hospital, the imaging department of Kolebu, Rage 37, and our regional hospitals, a government which claims it cannot subsidize dialysis treatment and prevents our compatriots from dying, a government unable to clear billions in arrears to contractors, independent power producers, school feeding caterers, public sector workers, teacher and nursing trainees, national service personnel, DACF, NHIS, Get Fund, a government unable to employ thousands of young graduates who offered nursing and pharmacy and have had to stay at home for years, a government which embarrassingly owed the Black Queens for many months until recent fierce mass agitation, and a government desperately seeking an IMF bailout must not be allowed to spend $48 million, that is 602 million Ghana cedis, for an 18-day event, particularly when Parliament has generously approved 100 million Ghana cedis. We shall surely defeat this plutocratic scheme for God and country. Chekuja pto abonsem bebreso abanya yehuhia abanya yehia sika yentumi nto dialysis yentumi yese waboboso ni na ene yenam ene yegigi sika si ye ko spend 48 million ewo all African Games eso. Basically, this is what Okudzeto e dia ba betuja. Don't share your comment box in my for.